Are the feds trying to muddy the water with the UFO disclosure product? There seems to be a lot of charlatans and people who don't actually know what's going on suddenly throwing their voice into the mix, trying to distract us from what's really happening. We're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about what is the government hiding at the South Pole Station in Antarctica. Turns out the South Pole Station not only is an earthquake generating machine. Yes, the station can create earthquakes around the world. In fact, we've gotten quite good at it. It's devastating. In fact, the devastating earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand, yes, that was the fault of this massive South Pole Station. As also, it is a interstellar air traffic control tower at the South Pole Station. I know this might blow the minds of many of you watching right now, but many of you are awake and understand what's going on. Very few people have actually been to the South Pole Station. Very few people know what's actually happening there, but our next guest worked for Raytheon and was stationed at the South Pole Station. He saw the technology in action, and now he's a whistleblower trying to wake all of us up to what these governments are doing and how the feds are perhaps trying to muddy the water right now. My guest is Eric Hecker. Welcome back to the show, Eric. Great to see you.
Thank you very much for having me, Clayton. I've been looking forward to talking to you again.
Me as well. You and I spoke about a month ago on a separate topic, but I will say that we're going to talk about a lot of things today. We're going to talk about the weather manipulation. We're going to talk about what's obviously unfolding in Antarctica at the South Pole Station, and how all of these things are tied together. But you and I talked about a month ago because you've noticed something that's been happening in the UFO disclosure community, where there are people who are really trying to interject themselves and perhaps trying to muddy the waters on disclosure. And we're seeing a lot of obfuscation right now happening. So, for instance, just at the South Pole Station, as an example, right? You were stationed there, but there are people who claim to have gone to Antarctica, but really are only there as tourists, like on a cruise ship, have never actually been to the South Pole Station, but then they release videos talking about all the details of the South Pole Station, and they've never actually been there. That's just one example. But what has been bothering you so much right now about the state of UFO disclosure in the United States and around the world?
I guess my frustration, Clayton, is that these people are, being put in the spotlight, put on a pedestal, that their information is being put to the forefront when it's unsubstantiated speculation. Like you just mentioned, these people have not been to the fifth largest continent on the planet, short of one person who went as a rich tourist, and basically had the party line thrown in his face and learned nothing. That's Brad Olson. I mean, I'm not here to pull punches. The folks that I see discussing the topic of Antarctica unjustifiably would be folks like Brad Olson, Linda Moulton Howe, Dr. Michael Salla. They are being bamboozled by people that they're calling whistleblowers and putting out to the public as whistleblowers, as if these people have the capacity to vet these personnel. They don't have the life experience to realize when someone's lying to them. They don't know what's going on. They've yet to provide one single picture of any whistleblower being in Antarctica. That's a major red flag. These same people will say, "Well, you're not allowed to have cameras there, and it's banned." Well, how come I have so many pictures and videos from my presence in Antarctica? I stand in defiance of them because I know that they're being either lied to or they're part of the lie, because there's just too much information that they put out that I can challenge all day long. If I was to talk to one of their supposed whistleblowers, I would obliterate their story in 2 seconds flat. This is just it's time for people to really step up and challenge these people that are claiming to be experts on topics that they're not.
You mentioned Brad Olson. What specifically has he said about the South Pole Station and the South Pole specifically, and what do you say is inaccurate?
one of the things that Brad likes putting to market is that there is a hole at the South Pole Station, as originally reported by Admiral Byrd, but then by, again, some anonymous whistleblower that we're told by Brad has observed said hole at the South Pole Station. And he often references that there is a no fly zone at the South Pole Station. I literally, myself, in person to Brad Olson, I've spoken to this man many times on this topic. I showed him a map of the South Pole Station that very clearly indicates there is a no fly zone in a quadrant of the facility known as ARO, ARO, the Atmospheric Research Observatory. It is a clean air studies facility at face value. In that area where the no fly zone is listed, like every map has a key. You know, we've all seen maps before, and there's a key that gives greater detail. So when the pilots look and they see on the map no fly zone, they go to the key and it clarifies that in the no fly zone, you must fly above 8,000 feet. It's not that you can't fly there, it's that they instill a floor, and that floor height is 8,000 feet. You must fly above it. There's no ceiling restriction, which means you can fly as high as you want. So reasonable logic dictates that you can fly anywhere you want at the South Pole, except for in one small area where you cannot go below 8,000 feet. So this would provide no restriction of view if there was a hole at the South Pole Station. Brad is simply just picking and choosing the information and which whistleblowers he wants to put information out from. The information that he's choosing to put out is unsubstantiated, speculative junk when he has had verifiable intelligence put to him that he could utilize and chooses not to.
Like
I
this massive
wonder
hole?
what his motives are. There's
Yeah,
and there's no hole. I've been there. I can prove that I was there. I can prove the conversation of the no-fly zone not being as presented to the public. I wonder why he is trying to confuse the masses.
there's a lot of that going on right now in Washington, D.C., around the UFO disclosure movement right now. Just more broadly, why do you think the feds are injecting themselves into this in order to muddy the waters? And then what would be the objective to try to muddy everything right now?
I absolutely do, because I get I use the word tapped when people try to feed me bad intel or just uh, discern the level of information that I have available to me. So I see it regularly in my own firsthand experience. And then in regards to the question of motive, I mean, this is the intelligence and counterintelligence game as a standard. They want to cover up the good information with misinformation and disinformation so they can continue doing what they're doing. When I went to Washington, D.C., and I testified in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee and ARROW, basically the conversation reduced down to, Eric, now that we have information like yours that supports that we now have these rogue factions running around with technology that the average person um, almost couldn't even consider exists. What do you think we should do? And it's a very challenging question because the game is being played very hard, and these rogue factions um, seem to be very unaccounted for. It's very challenging to discern how many different groups are out there, but for anybody that wants to get into the disclosure community, you will find in very short order that you either agree with the speculative, unsubstantiated crap, or you do not get a voice. You, sir, are one of the few and far between people that I feel is actually a diamond in the rough in this community because you're not playing those games.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have no agenda. I just have the truth. And someone's, I have people that try to spin me crap all the time, right? And so I want people who were there. I want people who were in these locations, you being in the South Pole Station, you're seeing it with your eyes. There's so many things right now. I think people say, I'm not going to believe it until there's a craft that lands in my front yard or on the in front of the White House. That's when I'll believe it. Show me the alien bodies and I'll believe it. Okay, that's one piece of it. But here, Eric worked at the South Pole Station and witnessed this technology in action. And your sources are impeccable and you have the receipts to show it. So this is what I'm most interested in, is the actual facts. And what you've been able to bring to the table is phenomenal. I've been fascinated. I think some of my fascination has come from some of that speculation about Antarctica over the years. The ideas, the speculation that there's a massive underground base under Antarctica, that there is a giant hole there and all of these things. And what you're saying is, no, there's not. But the truth is actually more powerful and stunning than all of this speculation, right?
Yes, exactly. The truth is scarier than the fiction, and I think that's why they keep pumping the fiction, because they don't want people to know what the truth is. I was recently invited to speak over in the Alamosa area of Colorado at a invite only event, and I was able to get a gentleman who's in the disclosure community. He goes by the name of Rex Bear of the Leak Project, and he wanted to come out and interview me while I was in Colorado. So of course I agreed. I'm trying to get the truth out there. In my communications with him, he informed me that he has been sitting for a couple of years on an interview that he did with one of the last survivors of Admiral Byrd's expedition. He stated to me that in this interview, that this gentleman destroyed all the narratives that are out in the community now regarding Antarctica. And I asked him why he wasn't putting this information out there. And I just got a peculiar look. So again, these are things that I'm learning by diving into the disclosure community, is that there are more people trying to control the narrative and hide the truth than there are folks that are interested in the truth, the ramifications to what that means for we the people, and avoiding this discussion of what should we do now that we realize that we're in hot water. There's great disparity between the technologies that you and I and everybody else gets to utilize every day and the technologies of those that are oppressing us. I believe, and I bastardize and misquote people, but I'll do my best on this. I believe Goth said that the limits of tyrants are prescribed by the level of patience of those whom they oppress. We have to break out of this. We are allowing ourselves to be treated this way. And there are folks that are helping to control the narrative to keep us in this state of oppression. And look how that's panning out for the folks in North Carolina and Florida right now.
Let's talk about the weather piece of this. So we're seeing the weather manipulation. We've covered this extensively here on the show. The NEXRAD radar systems that have been used to direct and move these storms in a path of destruction. The control of these storms is unbelievable. And I think most Americans were kind of silent, didn't realize that this was actually happening. I think the cat is out of the bag on all of this now. I'm curious, maybe you can paint a picture. In the introduction, I painted a little bit of a picture of what the South Pole Station is, and when you work there, how it actually is able to be used as an earthquake generating machine, what else it's doing there, and maybe how this is tied to the current weather events and all of the things that we're seeing right now across the United States. Can you give our audience more of an overview of that?
Absolutely. The South Pole Station has a system known as the IceCube Neutrino Detector. It is currently the world's largest phased array transmitter. This is basically Tesla technology. I'm sure a lot of the audience is familiar with systems like HARP, which is effectively built on the surface of the Earth, and it has a 2D situation. It has length and width as far as a phased array goes. The South Pole Station differs in so far as it also goes down deep into the ice, giving it a third dimension, length, width, and height. So it has exponential more, I guess you would say, capabilities, targeting
Than the HARP
discharge of
machines do.
power. Then, yeah, it's like HARP on steroids, basically. So, yes, it generated the earthquakes that occurred in Christchurch, New Zealand in February of 2011.
And you told
Similar
me
to,
before, I'll let you go on in a
go
second,
ahead.
but when you and I chatted on the phone a few weeks ago, you mentioned, I don't know if you can say this now or if I'm speaking out of telling tales out of school here, but you
Fire
were
away.
speaking to a source that you worked with at the South Pole Station since you left there. Said the technology has gotten so advanced now with these generation of earthquakes that it's like an autopilot system in an aircraft. I think you described it, that it's so advanced now, it would blow your mind at how targeted these earthquakes are that they can use
Yeah,
from this South Pole
yeah.
Station.
Basically, the trick of it all. One of the things that I learned when I went to this event in Alamosa, Colorado, I spoke with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Simeon Hine, and he was doing a presentation on ball lightning. And one of the things that he discussed was how there are reports when earthquakes occur that ball lightning, I guess you would say, is ejected, manufactured by the earthquake. So I engaged him in a dialogue and I said, well, Doc, wouldn't there be some sort of symmetry there that if an earthquake can discharge ball lightning, wouldn't we be able to deliver ball lightning to generate an earthquake? And he agreed that it's just simply the matter of being able to deliver said energy, which, for all practical purposes, think of it having an explosive capacity to it. So if you can wirelessly transmit energy from a power supply somewhere on Earth, deliver it to another location, the end result is quite simply an earthquake. Wireless transmission of energy is something that Nikola Tesla has brought up, 100 some odd years ago now. So this is the state of the union: is that Nikola Tesla discovered this stuff. The powers that be absconded his information. They cordoned it off away from the mass population and have been monopolizing the use of these types of technologies for many decades now. We, the people, are suffering under this monopoly of technology by our oppressors. It's literally just that simple, and that would be the motive for them to have agents, for lack of a better term, flooding the disclosure community with BS to muddy the waters and confuse us, we the people, so that we can continue to be wholly oppressed and well managed.
When you were at the South Pole Station, you witnessed this ice cube neutrino machine in action. So it goes deep and it's and much larger than HARP. And I guess just walk us through what they would be using this for. How would they be manipulating the weather? How would they be manipulating and targeting earthquakes around the world? Why would they be doing this? And who is in control of the South Pole Station at this point? Is it the United States government? You were a contractor with Raytheon when you were there. Is it a private enterprise? Who is controlling it?
Great questions. First and foremost, one of the things that the former crew members had emphasized to me to try to get people to understand as I'm trying to get this information out there is that you have to understand it's just very easy now to deliver that energy anywhere on the planet. It's not challenging.
Like they can pick a spot. They can
Yep.
They can pick a spot in Iran and they can just dial it in on the computer and launch an earthquake.
Deliver the energy that instigates it. The term that people should become familiar with is earthquake induction or earthquake inducing. So similar to like when you go on the internet and you Google chemtrails, right? You're going to get a whole bunch of baloney that says chemtrails are garbage, blah, blah. But if you Google the term stratospheric aerosol injection, you'll start to find all of the science of what's really going on when they crisscross our skies. So
And the
if people want
patents and all of that.
absolutely,
Yes.
yeah. So
Right.
if you look up inducing earthquakes or earthquake induction, you will become privy to a sea of information and science that supports the existence of this technology. It's just that available. People just need to start paying attention to what's going on in the world around them and this disparity in technology. As far as who's running the facility, I'm not 100% sure. This was part of that conversation that I had in Washington, D.C., is because it seems like these unacknowledged special access programs, USAP, which anybody who's paying close attention, USAP is the actual title of the Antarctic program. It's the United States Antarctic Program, USAP. It is a USAP program by definition. So
Wow.
they are being very deceptive as to what the secondary and tertiary capacities are for this massive phased array system, and they're just pumping it out to the general population as if it's operating under the auspices of science. Of course, things like that have to be secreted away. They're not going to be running around saying we have the world's largest directed energy weapons system at the South Pole Station in Antarctica, because first and foremost, it would breach the Antarctic treaties. And people would say, oh, well, they would never do that. Well, study Greenland and look what happened down there when the United States of America was sneaking nuclear missile bases into Greenland without telling the local authorities. This is an activity that our nation and many other nations are more than happy to break the rules every single chance they get.
I mentioned at the top, and this is something from your testimony, that this South Pole Station is also a giant air traffic control center that's monitoring the traffic of interstellar travel. I think for anybody who might not be aware of that, they're saying this, wait, interstellar, you mean craft that's going out into the solar system and beyond. We are tracking that with a control tower at the South Pole Station.
Effectively, the IceCube neutrino detector, in its primary purpose, is a neutrino observing facility. What I learned in my communications when I went to Washington, D.C., was that what we commonly refer to as UFOs, they're exotic propulsion systems that allow them to do the things that many witnesses have observed, and many nations, states, and rogue factions seem to have access to this technology, is that their propulsion systems emit neutrinos. So, just like we have radar systems at a standard airport that can track the air traffic of conventionally powered air vehicles, well, now we have this new format that requires observation, whether it's vehicles that are from our own human hands, if it's something in-world, off-world, regardless of where they come from. Apparently, these propulsion systems emit neutrinos, and that provides us an avenue to observe their activities. Why would we not observe those activities if we had the capacity to?
It's unbelievable. Where do you think things stand right now with the UFO disclosure? We saw past couple of days, of course, revelations from journalist Michael Schellenberger about the name for one of these programs. I think it's Operation Immaculate Constellation. So we're getting some more information, but it seems like drips and drabs. Where do you see it as an insider, as someone who's been on the inside of this?
I see it as an utter and complete circus. You have a ringmaster in the circus, and it's his job to keep everybody's focus on the ring that is lit for the show while they stage 2 other rings for the next event. That's what I see going on. Is they keep trying to control the vernacular. They keep trying to come up with new words and rewrite the next chapter of some science fiction tale that lacks any substance. And this is how they lead the people away from the truth. You have folks like David Grush, who is basically just a whipping boy for Christopher Mellon, and the folks in our government that are trying to control the narrative. David Grush basically got thrown out in front of a microphone out of nowhere, almost immediately on the heels of the disclosure event that I testified to in Washington, D.C. as a person with direct first-hand experience in actionable intelligence. I believe that was an operation to take people's attention away from what could be proven by what they want folks to speculate about. There was really nothing that he presented that was of great value other than getting everybody to say, oh, the government's telling us about UFOs. What did they tell you? Did they tell you where? Did they tell you what?
Right.
I
They
did.
really haven't told us anything, but you have.
How come that group that he spoke to hasn't asked to speak with me? I have actual intelligence. I can tell them where to invade and what to shut down. How come they don't?
Yeah, Nancy Mace, you have representatives of Congress. Nancy Mace, if you're watching right now, you're one of the people on this committee holding these hearings. Here's Eric. He worked at the South Pole Station. He's got the receipts. Why haven't they reached out to you? You were literally in Washington, D.C. testifying, and they haven't reached out to you?
Correct. When I testified in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee, they thanked me for sharing my information. They told me it would be input into the National Archives, and they told me that my deposition would be expedited to Congress. At that time, I felt that meant they were going to do something about it. I'm pissed off. They didn't do anything about it. Now we have more Americans in harm's way due to potential weather manipulation. Can I testify that I know that the South Pole Station was a part of the weather manipulation as of most recent? I don't know, but I can presume that because of the existence of this technology, we have to at least consider it.
So let's talk about that. I'll get you out of here soon here, Eric, but the weather manipulation piece of this, we talked about the earthquake piece of this. So we've seen a number of these NEXRAD radar systems going off in bursts and basically directing Hurricane Helene into an area where the NEXRAD radar systems were not going off, being directed in a path. Of course, a lot of discussion about HAARP and how all of this plays into it. If you talked about the South Pole Station, the IceCube neutrino machine basically being HAARP on steroids, how would it or likely be used with Hurricane Milton, Hurricane Helene in the United States?
I believe it would just be simple delivery of energy. That it is that simple. These systems themselves, we're just observing Mother Nature and the flow of her energies. We call it a storm. We call it a hurricane. It's just a matter of practice through the application and delivery from systems like this that have copious amounts of power available to deliver. It's just a matter of playing around and learning the targeting and reaction. It's application of intention and checking the reaction. And this is something that they seem to have gotten dialed in, whether it be through one singular system at the South Pole, or like we're seeing with the NEXRAD systems, or potentially through integrating with other HAARP platforms around the world. We just need to start to appreciate that this is exactly how it works and how simple it can be. Energy can be delivered wirelessly with great accuracy and impact, and we're witnessing it with our own eyes. And we need to start asking the right questions of the right people. And we need to stop being led by the nose by the misinformationists and disinformationists that, frankly, don't really have any skin in the game other than profiteering.
We've seen some videos as it relates to what's been going on with Israel and Iran and Lebanon over the past couple of weeks. And we have been hearing rumblings that we are sort of, on the face of it, about to face sort of a manufactured World War III. The saviors of that World War III would be some sort of fake alien invasion. I keep hearing this over the past couple of months from different sources. Get prepared for a fake alien invasion that will be something done by the governments, and we will all sort of fall in line with this. I know this sounds preposterous to a lot of people, but what do you make of these rumblings? Have anything concrete to share with us?
I think they're very concerning because I believe that the fake alien invasion situation is actually a trick up the sleeve for those that are interested in what's referred to as continuity of government. If they can manufacture a large enough emergency, they can just simply throw the Constitution out and take full control in a dictatorial capacity. If people do not believe that this can occur, well, check your history books and look what happened after 9/11 and the Patriot Act. It's already occurred. We are already operating under emergency powers as applied by the Patriot Act. They just want to kick this can further down the road. People should be terrified at the idea of a false flag alien invasion because it has nothing to do with legitimate UFO disclosure and everything to do about taking your rights away even further than they have. The children today do not even have one close taste of the freedom that you and I had as children, Clayton, and they want to make that even further from their understanding. People don't know what freedom is. If George Washington was walking around the United States of America today, do you think he would say, "Look at all the freedom that I provided to you"?
No, it would look like a tyrannical government, and and Thomas Jefferson would say the very thing he said back then, which is, if the people fear their government, it's time to shake off that government and start anew. And
Yes.
people fear their government right now. And you're right,
Correct.
the continuity of government piece of this is terrifying. We already have in place that with an invasion, with a national security threat, basically the president of the United States is void, and the head of NORAD becomes the de facto leader of the United States, right, to protect us in the case of some sort of massive invasion. These videos that have been circulating during the bombings from Iran showed bizarre craft shooting missiles out of the sky. So these videos started surfacing. Like, where did these, like, they almost look like UFOs shooting these missiles out of the sky? Is that sort of the prelude for what we're about to see here? I mean, it's terrifying, but I think we should all wake up and just ask these questions and not be scared of asking these questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if we hypothesize, like you said earlier, what could be the motive? What could they be intending with this technology that I'm trying to fill people in on? And it could quite simply be that, is to be able, I believe it was William Shakespeare said, "All the world is a stage." Well, I think that we're very unaware of the stagecraft that's going on, and as they're setting the scenes and they're getting ready for the ringmaster to light up the next ring. It could be just that simple, is that they want, like, we have guys like Lou Elizondo and David Grush. We don't have that. There's UFOs out there, but we certainly don't have the technology. Well, that's the lie. That's what their job is to convince the American people that the United States government and many other factions have not had this technology in their hands for many decades, because that is the stagecraft that they hold power with. And if tomorrow they wanted to bust out American military technology and claim that it was aliens, I mean, what percentage of the population do you think would just believe that immediately? And that's the scary thing, is that they will, just like after 9/11, when all of that stagecraft occurred, people were very happy to relinquish their rights.
Right. Yeah, we take off our shoes at the airport now. I mean, this is...
we
we're
get
happy to have
harassed
our
at the
faces.
airport. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think George Washington and the Founding Fathers said something about the right to travel unharassed. But we've lost that.
Yeah, we are. We're very quick. We need a common enemy, and a fake alien invasion would be that massive common enemy that we could all relinquish our rights to the government to control us. Just after 9/11.
What if they use technology that's at the South Pole to whip up an earthquake or whip up a storm? Stuff that's never been seen before, but then lay it at the feet of supposed said aliens. And now we have to yield because, look what they can do, and there's nothing we can do about it, when in reality it's them doing it.
Right. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, you see these crazy storm clouds, lightning we've never seen before, storms we've never seen before, and then they want to blame it on climate change, right? But they're all whipping it up using these different HARP machines
Yeah, I
around
mean
the world.
the patents for HARP state very clearly that they are ionospheric heaters. I mean, so there's your global warming right there. So we're doing it with our own technology, not by the devices that they claim to be. It's not cows farting in the barn, folks. It's the
Right.
patented ionospheric heaters. There's one in
Oh
Gakona,
my
Alaska.
God.
I went to twice. I worked with
Right.
alongside a gentleman who told me that he himself personally, and he said he would interview with me. We've just yet to cross paths for that. But he said he worked on the generators at the HARP facility in Gakona, Alaska, in what they call connexes, which we call them like a cat in a box, a generator in a portable, movable, those metal things that you see at the shipping yards. We call them connexes. So he was escorted by armed guard to work on the generators, stuffed into the metal box and told if they come out without permission, they'll get shot. It's a very serious location. He said that the amount of power for the generators at the HARP was off the wall stuff he's never seen before. So people really, they don't appreciate the power that's being played with by these systems. As an example, the South Pole Station, the IceCube neutrino detector, currently the largest phased array transmitter on the planet. All right, folks, here's what's going on with that. It's about to be increased in size tenfold. It's already approved. It's moving forwards. It's going to be made 10 times bigger. My question is, why?
Right. It can already send earthquakes around the world with a push of a button. It can already manipulate the weather around the world with the push of a button. Why do you need it any larger?
What's the
would you
return on
speculate?
investment? What's it going to cost? And what's the return on investment? What did it cost already? And what's the return on investment for what we were told by its primary mission? All right, let's take them for their word. It's a neutrino detector. Okay, well, what did it cost, and what's the price per neutrino detected, and what do we do with that information? What's the value in science that's the return on the investment for the average mortgage payer that's investing into this? What do we care where neutrinos are coming from? It doesn't seem to have much logic and reasoning to what we're being told its function is. But if we realize that there are rogue factions in control of the world's largest phased array transmitter that can deliver copious amounts of energy anywhere on the planet to manipulate storms, to increase them, to steer them, to create earthquakes. It was many decades ago that the Air Force put together a plan to control the weather by 2025. This is a report that's available on the internet now. This is a report that was handed to me in great secrecy many years ago. I was told to never get caught with it. But it stated very clearly that weather warfare and weather manipulation was the battlefield of the future. That he who controls the weather controls the planet. I do not believe that the United States government is the only faction working in this capacity. I do not even believe that nation states are the only factions working in this capacity. In my experience, nation states are puppets to military industrial corporation contractors. Those folks run the world because there's no
Sure.
freedom of information that allows you to dig into their archives and let us know what they're doing. They simply manufacture whatever they want and then sell it to the highest bidder. Nothing prevents these companies from building their own fleets of UFOs. Nothing's stopping them from going off planet and mining asteroids if they want. Here's another thing that people don't consider. If we're not told that a technology exists, then it's not regulated.
Oh,
Think about that. If we don't
fascinating.
know it exists, it's not regulated. So these corporations can invent stuff. They don't have to put it to market. It's more valuable to be in an unregulated state and then It's compartmentalized, and they can do whatever they want because no one knows it's going on. Maybe corporations have nation states bowing to them right now, right? Maybe a corporation runs the South Pole Station. Oh, that's right. Currently, Lockheed Martin has the contract. It used to be Raytheon, but now it's Lockheed Martin, another military industrial contractor. I do maintenance work for a living. I'm aware that there are contracting companies that can provide the services needed at the South Pole Station that don't make weapons. Why is it that only weapons grade contractors seem to be able to get these contracts? If you're simply providing janitorial services, equipment and station maintenance, uh, cooking culinary crews, why is that in Lockheed Martin's arena? Why was it in Raytheon's arena?
It makes you feel like, I said this on the show the other day, it really just makes me feel like we're all being played. We're just simply,
totally
you
being
mentioned,
played.
Shakespeare, like the whole, all the world's a stage, and we're just pawns right now on their massive chessboard,
Totally.
being manipulated. And it's deeply disturbing. And you think about HARP. I mean, why? What do they tell us that HARP is supposed to be for? What is the cover story for why we even have these HARP, ionizers heating in the
Right.
atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question. They technically the answer is they really don't. They don't really tell us in any specificity what the purpose is. They'll give vague answers like it's for atmospheric research,
Of course,
ionospheric studies.
right.
I mean, but what does that mean? And to the average layperson, they'll just pause at that point, accept the answer, and presume, well, there's scientists involved, so it can't be nefarious. I think Hitler had a bunch of scientists working for him too, though. Oh, but I forgot those scientists at the end of the war came over to the United States and then started working for us.
Right.
How could that go wrong? I
Exactly.
mean, wasn't Werner
Yeah.
von Braun the head of NASA after being a lead role in the SS?
Exactly. Yeah, we don't want to talk about that, right? We can't.
Yeah,
We can't bring that up.
yeah, yeah. It's not possible that these Nazis and SS officers came over here with some negative ideas. I mean, obviously the war ended, so they just immediately switched sides and became good because that's how
And we're
life
given
works, right?
and given cushy contracts and a beautiful house and and new names and anonymity, and they could live in the United States and work. That was part of the deal.
I
That was
grew up
part of
on
the
Long
deal with
Island,
Hitler.
and anybody can do some research. Check out Camp Siegfried on the east end of Long Island, right over where Nikola Tesla's facility was in Wardenclyffe. Camp Siegfried was a post-World War II facility where all of the Nazis would congregate in full Nazi regalia in the United States. It was a recreational area for post-World War II Nazis that were not hiding anything. There was a group called the Bund, which was basically Americans or Germans post-World War II that were very supportive of the Nazi concepts. Camp Siegfried, you can Google it, folks. You'll see pictures that'll blow your mind. It looks like Nazi marching groups, just like Hitler had in Germany. But this was happening on Long Island in New York after we supposedly won the war. When all the Operation Paperclip scientists came over, it was tolerated, it was welcomed, it was invited. We allowed them into some of the highest offices of our country and pretended for some reason that they were no longer evil. Well, where did these people go to? They all had systems of communication. They all had modalities of keeping things secret and compartmentalized in their own fashion before they came here. Are we to be so naive to think that when they infiltrated us over here, that they no longer maintained similar lines of secret communication to continue their intended original plans prior to losing the war?
Of course. Just like in Argentina, where the Third Reich reestablished itself, and where, I mean, entire cities of Misiones and others in Argentina just basically became the new Third Reich. The transportation of those individuals into these other countries. It's like the secondary Germany. Eric, I could talk to you for hours about all of this. I just want to get you out of here on this. Just give me your final thoughts on this, where things stand with disclosure. You talked about it being a circus, heading into the election, and what do you think we're going to see maybe pre-election, after the election?
I think we're going to see some sort of spark to a fire. And that fire could be a false alien invasion, to get continuity of government activities rolling. I believe the people, the crowd of people watching the supposed disclosure researchers and stuff, they need to start demanding actionable intelligence instead of all this foo-foo sci-fi, space arcs are warming up under the ice in Antarctica. I mean, come on, really? Folks, get your head out of your asses. These people are not journalists. They're not following any journalistic integrity. They're basically science fiction authors that have figured out a new avenue. Instead of writing books, they're now podcasters that are making up science fiction. Their supposed intelligence and their supposed whistleblowers are junk at best. And we, the people, deserve better than that. We deserve the truth. We deserve to get the proverbial boot off of our throat from the oppressors that are taking advantage of the disparity in the technologies that we use and the technologies that they possess. It's getting really ridiculous, and we're screaming fast down a very slippery slope of finding ourselves in a position where if we don't do something now, we may find that our great-grandchildren will still be under that boot because we chose to do fucking nothing.
Well said. Well said. Wake up, everyone. Wake up, everyone. My thanks to Eric Hecker for being here today. We really appreciate it. Continued great work trying to get the message out. If there's anything we can ever do to continue to get the message out, let us know, Eric. It's great to have you back on the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Clayton. Be well.